The Arizona Cardinals, we know that Kyler Murray is still rehabbing from that ACL injury that he suffered late last year. He most likely isn't going to be ready to go week 1. He is going to miss a couple of games to start the season. So the Arizona Cardinals are right now trying to figure out who's going to be QB1 going into week 1 this year. Currently, right now, they have Colt McCoy, who's injured. You have rookie Clayton Tune, David Blough, and Jeff Driskel. Now, Colt McCoy probably is the favorite to win this job, although he is dealing with an injury right now. He's been the Cardinals' backup QB for the last couple of years. And last year when he came in, he wasn't that great. He threw 3 interceptions. He only had 1 touchdown, but the offensive line was going through a lot of injuries. And the play calling wasn't the greatest with Cliff Kingsbury. So maybe with a new coaching staff in place, if Colt McCoy does end up getting the start, he'll end up improving. And he is the most experienced quarterback out of all the QBs that they currently have in this QB room right now. He's kind of like a coach on the field, and he's a good mentor to have in your quarterback room if you have a young quarterback like Clayton Tune. But I really believe that Clayton Tune is going to end up winning this job. And if you're a Cardinals fan, your mouth may be a little bit dropped. You may be saying, JT, you think Clayton Tune is going to end up winning the starting QB job for Arizona this year? Yes, I do, because if you're Arizona, what do you have to lose? Like, you drafted a rookie QB and Clayton Tune, who is pretty solid. A lot of people in the draft community were pretty high on Clayton Tune. There's been a lot of videos that came out saying that he's a little bit of a sleeper. And I can understand why. If you go back and you watch his tape at Houston, this is somebody who has solid mobility. He has pretty good accuracy. He makes pretty good decisions with the football. He's really good when it comes to throwing the football against man coverage. He struggles against zone coverage. His arm strength is average at best. But if you're Arizona, I don't see the reason why you shouldn't start Clayton Tune, because this is a young QB who hasn't taken any reps in the NFL. So why not see what you have in him? For all we know, this guy may end up being a pretty serviceable QB. And if you want to move on from Kyler Murray at the end of this season, if Clayton Tune ends up performing at a pretty high level, you could maybe have your QB of the future. But if Clayton Tune struggles, then you end up having a higher draft pick in next year's draft. So I don't really think the Arizona Cardinals have anything to lose by starting Clayton Tune week 1. And this is supposed to be a rebuild or a roster overhaul anyway, so it kind of would benefit them throwing Clayton Tune in, even if he struggles or not, because if he struggles, then, as I mentioned, they'll have the opportunity to have a high pick in next year's draft. But if he does good, then you potentially may end up having somebody who can be a decent backup for you or be a low-end starter for you if you want to move on from Kyler Murray somewhere in the future. They also have David Blough, who has played a couple of years prior to arriving in Arizona for the Detroit Lions. He was recently re-signed this offseason to a 1-year deal. The Cardinals signed him late last season after Kyler Murray got injured, and he started in 2 games last year against the 49ers, which they got blown out in that game. He had 2 picks in the touchdown. They lost to the Falcons in a close game. He was pretty okay in that game, but I don't think David Blough is really going to end up being in the mix for the starting QB job. Even though he's competing for it, I think at best he probably is competing to be the QB3 on this roster. You have Jeff Driskel, who has been around the block. This guy has played for several teams: the Bengals, the Lions, the Broncos. He's been on the Houston Texans roster for the previous 2 years, but I think he's more of a camp body just because Colt McCoy dealing with that injury, not really at 100%. They're trying to be a little cautious with him, so they brought in Jeff Driskel for extra assurance. But I think he's more of another camp body. I don't really expect him to make the roster, and if he does, he'll probably end up being on a practice squad maybe.